Well, that was the last few rousing chords of Procession to Covenant by William Himes, played by Foresters Brass 2000, conducted by John Davis. And I'm going to ask Kenny here, that was written for his wedding. So I'm going to ask you the initial question. What music do you have at your wedding? To go into and then to out to?
Oh, I forget what we went into. It's a long time
You
ago.
went into 20 years of bliss, that's what you went into.
25 actually.
25 years of bliss, that's what you went into.
We came out to an arrangement for 10-piece brass of Seventh Suite with a 300 bar cut to the opening,
300 bar
and
cut?
the last 5 bars. So
did you?
yeah, it was
I came out to Happy Days a year again, which didn't last too long.
the first couple of times.
Yeah, after that, blimey.
Like a dream you're in.
Yeah, I should have married Elizabeth Taylor. We would have had a lot in common, I think. I think that. We'd also back to see this, but we're actually joined again with another guest. We're with Stephen Mead, who has joined us. Usually globe-trotting around the world, but he is joining us there. Stephen, welcome to Bob.
Thanks.
So it's great to see you here.
It's really good to be here.
I'm not going to ask you, what did you get married to, the music? Do you remember?
I've had two marriages. So the recent one that I remember, which was just over 2 years ago, I had all my euphonium students from the RNCM in the church. There's a big euphonium choir. Dave Thornton was conducting, and we had an organist from France, and we walked in, or Misa walked in late, 16 minutes late, to the wedding march, the famous wedding march, with organ and euphonium, massed euphoniums. So couldn't be anything else, really, could it?
No, it couldn't have been. Really. I could have thought it was going to be Electric, Iron Maiden, Run to the Hills or something like that. But it couldn't have been Derek Bourgeois' Serenade.
Yes.
Which, of course, was written when either him or his wife...
I think it was him, he had a broken leg.
Had a broken leg, and that's the reason why it's
I heard different stories about that. Derek was in the early 1980s, he was my tutor at Bristol University. So he used to run by all sorts of funny pieces and titles, and he would come and find me with the latest title of a piece. In fact, I think we can say this. When he wrote the piece Euphoria, which Lyndon Baglin premiered, he actually originally had another title, which was Youth, E-U-P-H, Hearted, H-E-A-R-T-E. And I said, no, Derek, you can't call it that. So, he looked all disappointed. Went off down the corridor. He was an absolute character to work with. It was amazing, yeah.
I think he's written about 100 symphonies, something like that. He's prolific, I think, is the adjective.
Very prolific. I mean, he would write a symphony every couple of months, because we only know about a few of them. The Wine Symphony is probably the most famous one, and that is really fantastic. There's a movement called Champagne, and you can imagine how effervescent and shining this is. It's extraordinary. Sadly, he'll be gone by the time all the symphonies are rediscovered, and he'll be one of Britain's greatest composers.
I like the sound of that. A symphony based on drink.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he was quite an enthusiast.
I'm waiting for the Strongbow moment with that one there. Yeah. One of the things we have to say as well, lots of people have been in contact with us. They've been using the Twitter hash Fest of Brass, but we've also had a delightful message from Sandy Smith, who we talked about a bit earlier, one of the arrangers, and I got to hand it over to Kenny. Only a Scotsman can tell this. So what has Sandy been in touch with?
I've got a text message from Sandy, who we're talking about, obviously, in relation to some of the great things that have happened in
brass entertainment.
Yeah, we'll have, but he's also got one here that's not quite so great. Entertainment contest failure. The first Rothmans in 1977, which is now Brass in Concert. Whitburn followed Grindthorpe on stage. Grindthorpe finished with Mr. Lear's Carnival, Baba Yaga and Great Gate of Kiev, which should have been a great finish. Yeah. Our big finisher was Hootenanny. We had a lot to learn in those days. So, thankfully, Sandy did learn a lot, so well done there.
Well, it wasn't so long ago. I think when Dickie Evans came back with Leyland, they played Hootenanny.
Yeah, I think that was playing a different spirit, though, wasn't it? They realised...
There's some visuals that could go with that you probably couldn't do with the Great Gate of Kiev unless you had a couple of bricklayers with you.
But you take it. Going back with that, though, Steve, the Great Gate of Kiev. Going back to those, what were some of the ones over the years that you took?
Well, I think you had Simon Greswell here about an hour ago, and of course he and I were both in Desford, and Howard used to bring these absolute genius arrangements along, and he would often finish it like the afternoon of a rehearsal. So on Tuesday night, he would come in and say, he would hand me the full score, and he said, "Can I have the parts by Thursday?" Now this was before typesetting. So things like the West Side Story and the Daphnis and Chloe, if you look at the original Desford Parts,
They just bar after bar
copied
after
it
bar.
with score.
it's the full score cut up on my living room floor. And Fozzie, who's here today, and another guy from Scotland, cornet player, whose name escapes me, sorry about that we had a team of part makers with Howard Cell Score with scissors and sellotape, and I would take him to the high school where I was working the next day and photocopying, so you couldn't see the individual. So they've got half their library of Howard's genius arrangements is parts made on my living
64
room floor.
bars rest, isn't it? And you've got your originally.
But
Yeah.
seeing that, I remember I went up once to a rehearsal of Foden's when he was conducting, and he just brought something out. But the band's sight reading was phenomenal.
We got used to reading his scroll.
It was. It's very spidery writing,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Not,
And then
Bobby
he would
doesn't mind the
say,
saying.
you know, as bar 44. So you then have to go back and play that section. He wrote very quick and brilliantly. There was no editing needed, but a jolly good copyist, which came later.
But I remember he came to Tredegar once, and he put something in front of us at Tredegar, and he had one of these little yellow scores, orchestral scores. It was a Bach fugue. And he was just flicking through the scores the band were playing, and then would just shout out, change that D to a C sharp. 3 bars later, that goes into the minor. And as he was going along, he was just reading the score.
Yes.
The rest of us were just transfixed by it. And
Yeah.
at the end of it, he says,
Yeah.
"Oh, I didn't think that was very good." The rest of us thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And then he says, "Oh, you can have that if you want it."
Yeah.
And he was so generous in it, but the same thing to do it. So when he, playing with great players like that, it must be fantastic.
It was great. And the other thing, we think of the big finishes, but there was also those pieces by Ketelby, the clock with the Dresden figures. I mean, the first time in rehearsal when the clock winds up, dunk, 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 dunk. I mean, the laughter in the band room as Howard was trying to explain that this was a mechanical clock that has to explode. So we tried out everything for the first time, and we knew that we were living an important bit of entertainment history for brass bands. And there's never been quite such a heyday, a prolific, high-quality arrangement since then, I don't think.
Well, Steve, we're going to come back to you as well, because I think there's a fount of stories there. The next band on is going to be Alan Silver, directed by Daniel Brooks. They'll be playing Blue by Monosel Brass, London Derriere featuring Samantha Harrison, The Cossack by William Rimmer, Black is the Colour of My True Love's Hair by James Kerno, and The Great Toccata, the J.S. Bach arranged by Ray Farr. So without further ado, we're going to go back to Simone in the Hall.